This week on LTC News, sculptures roll through Lowell, staying healthy after school, and a memorial to refugees. Stay with us. Welcome to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Alanna Flood. The second annual Lowell Kinetic Sculpture Race was held on September 23rd on a gorgeous fall day. The kinetic sculptures are all-terrain, human-powered art sculptures, engineered to race over the road, water, mud, and sand. The city was packed with spectators of all ages watching the intrepid racers. Tom Golden kicked off the race with a ceremonial oath.
We have an oath to take. And when faced! With potentially perilous problems, I will remember the one rule to rule them all.
Then the racers were off, heading to the Songus Arena to tackle the maddening mud pit. The racers continued on to Lowell Heritage State Park for their next challenge, the Merrimack River Water Obstacle. After the soaking, the racers headed back to the finish line on Market Street, where they had begun the race about 4 hours before. Happily, next year we expect the race will be even bigger. And now Brian Dorrington, LTC Director of Municipal Programming, brings us his City Council Synopsis.
Hello and welcome to the City Council Synopsis for the meetings of September 26th and October 3rd, 2017. That's right, you heard me correctly. I'll be covering 2 meetings from now on, as LTC News is now an every other week program. That means we have to drop the silly and get right to 3 tiny trumps playing old-timey music. At a previous meeting, Mayor Edward Kennedy presented a motion asking City Manager Kevin Murphy to find out if a MEPA study was needed for the new high school at the Colley site. On September 26th, the City Manager presented a motion response that stated because the Colley site will bring in 4,000 new vehicles daily, that a study would need to be conducted. The study is required by the state for the purpose of showing cities and towns the environmental consequences of their actions. This is a public procedure that seeks input from local residents and is designed to aid conservation commissions and planning boards in their decision-making process. The study could take as long as 12 months to complete, but the administration assured the council and the public that this will not delay the projected timeline for the high school project. On the meeting of October 3rd, the city manager announced that Lowell was teaming up with Billerica in Tewksbury for an attempt to draw Amazon to the region. Early last month, Amazon announced it was seeking a second headquarters in North America and issued an RFP. Amazon plans on creating a campus-like headquarters that could exceed 8 million square feet. In the first 15 to 17 years, Amazon plans on investing more than $5 billion in capital improvements to the site. City Manager Kevin Murphy believes that Lowell and the surrounding areas are an attractive location for Amazon, citing the proximity to UMass Lowell and Middlesex, a quality of life that would attract future employees, and a growing reputation for bringing in established companies like the Markley Group, Kronos, and iRobot, just to name a few. Councillor Elliott presented a finance subcommittee report giving an overview of a meeting which took place earlier in the night, where the city administration presented a plan to increase parking prices around the city. Downtown residents and businesses came out in full force to speak out against the proposal. The city proposed a 69% increase in residential parking costs in the first year alone. On top of that would be a 15% increase in 2019, another 15% increase in 2020, and an 11% increase in 2021. Downtown residents are required to pay for one parking spot per unit, which is attached to their monthly HOA fee. If the prices of parking went up, so would the monthly HOA fee, which would also raise the price of rents. Many business owners spoke out saying they have to pay for their employees' parking, and if these increases were to be implemented, they would leave town because the costs would be too high. In the end, the Finance Subcommittee agreed with the residents and sent the proposal back to the city manager for further review. They agreed the prices do need to be raised, but not at such a significant rate. Well, that's all I have for you today. Remember, you can watch the meetings in their entirety on LTC Channel 99 or on demand anytime at ltc.org. Thanks for watching and be swell.
There are many signs of fall: crisp air, crunchy leaves, and parents scrambling to find after-school activities for their children. Here in Lowell, there's a dynamic after-school martial arts program for students called Grodojo. What makes the Grodojo program unique is that along with martial arts, students learn about growing and preparing healthy food.
They come in, they warm up with some mind IQ type games like block building or puzzle solving, and that gets them settled, and then we work out really, really hard. You know, we just take them through some of those warm-ups that I've learned from training in China with Kung Fu masters and just picked up over a lifetime of athletics. And we train them in that for about an hour, and then we go out and spend some outdoors time in the gardens. And then we come back and we make our snack, and then after snack it's homework time for kids that have homework or more games or more electives, things they want to work on. So all of that together is kind of a nice wraparound experience. That game's called the Plant Part game, where they have to model their body after a plant, and it's integrated martial arts and just full range movements, and very tiring, but they get really good at it. But one of the benchmarks that we have for them is they have to lead that game with 10 moves, no mistakes, no ums, no likes, you know, all the stuff people want for public speaking and leadership skills, and we drill them on that until they get it to 100%, and they're really proud when they do.
After practicing martial arts, the children go to their very own garden, harvest vegetables, and then bring them back inside to incorporate them into a healthy snack.
We take a stand on that and we say only healthy, sustainable food, organic foods, only stuff that we mostly prepare ourselves, and that's what we are dedicated to serving. So we have our gardens right as part of our dojo, and that's really important to us.
Oh, it's delicious!
Keep working on that.
Looks like everybody has their own job here in snack preparation time.
Yeah, this is the best time. We take the harvest right from the gardens, and some of that makes it into our harvest salad. We also have some fresh fruit, and we make a nice fresh fruit salad. And then we also make some smoothies, which some of the guys are going to be working on. So we try to get it made together, and we're learning the actual prep. So everything from peeling an orange to different kinds of slicing. So yeah, it's all kinds of real skills.
Teaching children how to eat healthy and exercise together. What's so magical about that combination?
Oh, yeah. For us, it's a big issue, as I see with adults. We do the exercise over here, and then we think we can eat whatever we want, or we do really good eating, but we think we don't have to like move our bodies in a dynamic way to stay truly healthy. And so we, through plants with Green Dragons, we just show that those absolutely belong together. So it makes it feel like a natural combination instead of extra work. So we call these power planters, and they're one of the things we love to build with our students in Green Dragons. It's a combination of a workout machine and a garden. We use plants like these beans that vine and tendril around structures. And then as you can see, kids like to vine and tendril around structures too, and it makes them stronger. So we teach that lesson about how plants move just like people do. So yeah, it's fun. These guys are just trying to swing a little bit, trying not to fall, yeah, and landing strong.
Use your roots.
We take them all the way up until 6 p.m. and you know, give the parents a little break, and you know, we just keep them happy, and they get some of their homework done.
Well fed,
yep.
homework
well fed,
done,
homework, yep.
Exercise, what could be better?
Yeah, we love it. It's good for us too.
On September 30th and 31st, Lowell St. George Antiochian Orthodox Church in the Acre celebrated its 100th anniversary. Founded in 1917, the church has provided a familiar taste of home for Lowell's Middle Eastern Christian immigrants and their descendants. Pastor Leonard Ferris explains.
Our church is a member of the Eastern Orthodox faith, the faith that began with Jesus Christ, and we trace our roots all the way back to the apostolic times. And the center of our church originally was in Antioch, because we are called the Antiochian Church. However, over the centuries, it has moved to Damascus, Syria. And now, because of the conflict in Syria, the head of our church, our patriarch, John the 10th, is in Lebanon. Today, our church not only has Syrian people, but Lebanese people, Greek people, Palestinian people, Jordanian people, Egyptian people, and also many converts coming from various other religions. The forefathers came at the time from Greater Syria. At the time, there was no Lebanon. It was all Greater Syria. They came here and to have a better life with their families. And one of the first things that they established was a church. This church, which was a Protestant Huguenot church, came up for sale. And that was in 1917. It was sold to us for $1,000 cash, $1,000 mortgage.
We've been planning our 100-year weekend for about 18 months, and there are probably five or six generations that are still original to the church, that are involved in the church and every aspect of it.
Originally, when they came and they bought this church, most of the parishioners came and bought homes in and around the area because it was all in walking distances. They never had cars in those days, so they walked to church. So around 90% of the parishioners lived either up the street on Arlington Street, Mount Vernon, Mount Washington, Rock, Adams Street, all in walking distance.
They did come to work in the mills. Also, some were peddlers. Certainly the one thing that was impressed upon them is they wanted their children and grandchildren to get a good education and to become part of the culture in the United States, and that they've done.
As part of its anniversary celebration, the church produced a documentary that we will be airing on LTC every Sunday in October at 11 a.m. on Channel 8. As Mayor Kennedy said, Lowell has become a welcoming mosaic of diverse cultures. This is certainly apparent on JFK Plaza, where a new monument was unveiled on Sunday, September 24th. Sobin Pin of the Khmer Post was there and brings us this report.
And it's been a wonderful journey.
After months of anticipation, a new monument was unveiled at City Hall. City Councilor Rodney Elliott presided over the ceremony.
We dedicate this monument to serve as a reminder to the world that we will never forget the travesties endured, yet the perseverance to overcome the crimes of humanity on the Cambodian people.
City Manager Kevin Murphy explained that the recently completed landscaping in JFK Plaza was done to create an area befitting a beautiful monument.
So with that in mind, we decided for this monument and all future monuments that we would construct 2 new islands on JFK Plaza so that there would be appropriate spots to place these beautiful statues and monuments.
Artist Jerry Levan, who created the monument called Khmer Refugee, is a National Endowment for the Arts Fellow and one of just a few Cambodian traditional ceramists living today.
I'd like to translate in English, just brief a little bit. He very proud of Cambodian community. He very proud. He say thankful to all the community who have donated little penny, $10, $20, anywhere private donation. And this is not just for our generation right now. It is for the next generation whenever we are not here anymore.
After a blessing by the monk, the national anthem, the Cambodian national anthem, and a performance by the encore dance troupe. Finally, the unveiling.
In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with Dan Shanahan, a current challenger for the Lowell School Committee.
This week brings us Dan Shanahan from Centerville. Dan, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You were at our debate the other night
Yes,
here
I
in
was.
these very studios. I appreciate you coming by.
It was a lot of fun.
Good,
Yeah.
good. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about today, who you are. We talked a little bit off camera about your 4 boys and how you coach Lowell, not Pop Warner, but the next level.
junior high league,
Junior
sure,
high.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're running for school committee. Then we can get into some specifics if that's okay.
My name's Dan Shanahan. I'm 45 years old, born and raised in Lowell. Always lived in Centerville. I am the father of 4 boys, 2 that have graduated from Lowell High School and are now in the Air Force. I have a 9th grader, Kyle, and a 6th grader. With that, I'm very, very vested in the school system here in the city. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law for, almost 17 years now, licensed in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and recently just moved to an office in Wellesley. So I commute there, and that's basically it. As far as what I do in my pastime or my free time, if I have any, I coach youth sports in Lowell. I've done that for the past 10 or 12 years. Lowell Junior High football, or presently I'm in my 4th year with them this year. I also help run and coach Centerville basketball over the winter, and recently help out with the Lowell lacrosse program in the spring. So
I think we could call you a jock.
busy season, but it's fun to teach the kids. It's fun to not only teach them about sports, but responsibility, accountability, time management. So I think there's a lot of valuable lessons that can be learned through sports, and I'm just grateful that I can be a part of that.
So you're a lawyer practicing in 2 states. You got 4 boys, 2 of whom are out of the house and they're in the Air Force, but you still have 2 left. All the coaching, how are you possibly going to find time to serve on the Lowell School Committee?
Well, there'll be sacrifices.
Yeah.
I have spoken to the board of Lowell Junior High football, of Centerville basketball, and they certainly understand and encourage my decision to run for school committee. So they would expect that they would see less of me during those seasons.
Right.
That my priority would be my career during the day, school committee, and then coaching. And I have been fortunate over the last couple of years to have some people helping me out, some assistance, so it wouldn't be too difficult to delegate that. Again, it's a recreation leagues,
Right.
It's for fun, so I just do what I can to help out and volunteer.
I've always liked candidates for public office, particularly for school committee, if they have kids, particularly if they have kids in the school district that they want to represent. Do you consider yourself uniquely qualified in that regard?
Well, I don't know if uniquely given, I think there are some other challenges that have children, but certainly I think that would be a benefit, would be an incentive for me to certainly want to see our school district succeed, to prepare not only my children, but other students, prepare them for careers, prepare them for college, and certainly the committee is a large part of providing those resources to those students.
What was the one issue or a series of issues that prompted you to actually get in this race? Why did you decide to run?
What initially got me involved was meeting other families when the Colley School, the Colley site debate began.
What debate?
Back in January. So in January, there was a group of families who I knew through sports, and there was conversation that there will be a site selected soon for a brand new high school. And I certainly, having an 8th grade son, was very interested to see what that was going to be. So I became more involved, received information,
Paid more attention, right?
Attended. I actually attended city council meetings, spoke a few times at public hearings, and saw our city government at work, and thought, I've always volunteered my time for youth sports, but perhaps I could do something at the next level, given my background, and take a shot at local politics, which I've never done before, and to see if I could be an asset or a benefit to our city.
So what was it about the high school debate, and what was it about that time frame back in January when you were talking to other families? You mentioned you have a son in 8th grade who will be coming over to the high school. Some people who've sat in that seat prior to you have expressed concern about their kids being at the high school during the time of construction, and they think that that is not conducive for proper instruction. Is that what's weighing in on this, or I'm just trying to get a few more specifics here on what it is about the high school?
And that was my primary concern, and my 8th grade son had expressed concern about what would happen to my classes if I spent most of my high school career during renovation and construction. Would it be disruptive? And he had friends that were going to other schools that were looking at Lowell Catholic and Central Catholic. So he was looking at options, and again, we assured him that let's wait and see what happens with the vote. There were June 20th deadlines for I guess, to commit.
Yeah, that deadline has been a moving target. But
and then when the vote was a 5-4 vote in favor of Colley, then we as a family decided, great, our son will go there, and hopefully we'll have an uninterrupted high school career. And then with my 6th grader coming up, that he would be hopefully one of the early classes that would graduate from the new school. At least that was the plan back in June.
Yeah. So why is it, if you had to pick, say, 3 reasons why you're in favor of Colley? You got into this a little bit the other night during the debate with your other school committee candidates. What is it about Colley that has you supporting Colley as a site for?
Well, as a parent, I think number one would be safety of your children, disruption in learning, the distractions that come with construction, and then the length of the project, where it could be 4 to 6 years. Secondly would be the costs are comparably similar, are very similar. So it's, do you want new construction, brand new construction for that money, or would you, could you live with a substantial renovation and remodel with some new buildings added on? So that was number 2. And then number 3, over the years, having visited other schools in the area, other districts, seeing Wilmington, seeing Tewksbury, seeing these high schools where when the bell rings at the end of the day, you're released out into open grounds, into a campus type setting. I always wanted that when I was in high school, as a high school experience, and I was hoping to have that for my children and for future generations of students, where when the school bell rings, you can go out and enjoy the grounds versus being in the middle of the downtown.
Right. You mentioned the cost, right? So we've seen some preliminary cost estimates for both the downtown and for the Colley Stadium site, but I don't believe that there's anything definitive yet that tells city officials and taxpayers precisely this is how much Colley's going to cost versus downtown. If those cost estimates ever become available, and they should at some point, and say, for instance, downtown is cheaper, a downtown option is cheaper, do you see yourself changing to the downtown?
Well, it would depend how much cheaper, and then you have to look short-term versus long-term. Because again, what we've, people who were pro-Colley, what they've looked long-term is the using the existing high school location for economic development. Putting that on the tax roll, freeing up the freshman academy where you could have special needs services there, or a school department, and so you could make money versus if it stays where it is, that's off the payroll. The Colley side is off the payroll. So again, you would have to look over time to see where the potential benefit of economic development downtown would over time offset any difference in the cost.
What about the referendum? Is that weighing on your mind at all?
You know, it's not, and I've said this from the very beginning when I first read the question, I thought, to use a legal term, it was very vague and ambiguous, which means that two people can interpret it very differently. We hear debates about what the question means all the time, which I think is strong evidence that what relevant evidence, information can you really gather from a yes or no question to that. So we'll see how the question is answered come election time, and then see how elected officials want to interpret those results.
What do you think would have been a more proper way to word the question?
Well, again, you have to make it a yes or no question. So, you know, I think you would have to compare an option to an option. Would you prefer option A over option B and cite some reasons?
Or downtown versus
yes
Collie.
No.
Do you want downtown or do you want Collie?
Correct.
Right.
But I do also, again, it's a non-binding referendum, and I have expressed concerns about letting that go to the voters in general if it was something binding. We know that the city council for months and months sat through numerous presentations from the design architects, reviewed volumes of documents, and ultimately to arrive at a decision where the site should be. And there's just no assurances that the average registered voter would sift through or examine all of that information to make an informed decision. So I felt that it was proper for the city council, given what their role was in this process, to make an informed decision at the end.
But you know, you want to be on the school committee. The school committee voted, you know, just the opposite, to go to the downtown. You know, how do you explain that? That's kind of a funky situation there. And if you had been on the school committee, would you have stuck to the downtown, stuck to Collie?
If I was on the school committee, I would have remained with, would have supported the Collie vote, because previously the school committee had already voted in approval of the education plan. And that's really the scope of what the school committee should be. It's primarily to make education decisions. And when I heard the vote, there was the special meeting on June 28th.
We have 2 minutes left. Yep.
On June 28th, when they took that special vote, and we heard the committee members go around the room saying why they were against that site. None of the responses had anything to do with education. So from an education standpoint, as a school committee person, I certainly would have supported the site at Collie.
I just want to get off this topic for the last 90 or so seconds. What do you see as 3 other top school department concerns of yours, or 3 of your objectives that you'd like to try to get at if you're elected? You know, we got Collie on the table. What are just a few others quickly?
When I'm with neighborhood schools, to revisit that issue, again, when I was in grade school, I thought neighborhood schools were very valuable.
Did you go to your neighborhood school?
I did.
And which was it?
I went to the Varnum and then the Robinson.
Okay.
And I'm still close friends with many of my classmates that date back to the early 80s.
Okay.
So I think it's valuable, you know, experience. Secondly, transportation. You know, here we have buses picking up children in front of schools in one neighborhood and transporting them to another neighborhood. And again, doesn't make sense at this point. I think we should revisit. 2 others would be transportation, busing. I think there should be transportation for all students up even through high school. I know some plans had been presented and some proposals that were maybe prematurely shot down, but certainly that should be further investigated, whether we can provide cost-effective transportation for students.
And one other, then we'll have to wrap it up, unfortunately.
And the third would be the maintenance of the buildings, maintenance of the schools.
Okay, right.
For the committee to work together and have better communication with the city council to make sure that our schools are not continue to go into disrepair.
It seems that hasn't always been the smoothest of relationships between the city side and the school department concerning the maintenance of buildings.
That's true. Okay. So hopefully with a new committee, with a new mayor who will act as the chair and a liaison between the committee and the city council, hopefully we can make some real marked improvements in the next term.
Sounds good. Dan Shanahan, thanks for coming in and meeting with us on Sunspot.
Speaking of candidates, LTC has many hours of campaign programming on channels 8 and 99. You can see debates and candidate speeches. Check LTC.org for a full listing of cablecast times. That's it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 8 and 99, on our Roku channel LTC Lowell, on the web at ltc.org, or get the link each week on Facebook. I'm Alanna Flood. Thanks for joining us.